Here comes Peter Cottontail. I don't know why I'm saying that. I think it's because of that. So many of the Deadwood songs in the end credits are about some animal or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
This one's about rattlesnake and why are his teeth so white. And all he does is bite. But that's what people knew back then. That's what they wrote about. They didn't write about, thoughts.
Feelings.
No, I meant like THOT.
Worse.
That's what I thought. THOT.
Anyways.
Welcome to another episode.
No, that's in.
Welcome to, anyways, a discussion of Deadwood. Today we're discussing episode 8 of season 2, entitled "Childish Things."
And this is overall episode 20.
Oh,
Overall,
I see. That's why
This is the 20th episode of this show you're watching,
and
also the show we're watching.
Mm-hmm.
the main
Together.
thing that happens in this episode is Tom Nuttall gets a new bike and
Yeah.
rides on it.
This
Yeah.
is the bike episode.
This is the bike episode, and
What do they call it? A bone wrangler?
a bone shaker.
Bone shaker.
And anyways, all the people of the town, including the rich person serial killer,
Yep.
turn and smile at the fact that Tom Nuttall wins his wager, and
Yeah.
and Bullock is able to bond with the soap and prize inside guy. They share a smile together. It's just
I
a
missed
beautiful.
I
Yeah,
missed that too.
it happens.
It's one of those, another one of those moments where it's just a completely out of context moment that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, like you stop and you smile when you see a bunch of people having fun and goofing off.
Even if you're a severed Indian head.
Yeah, even Chief was smiling. I
Yeah,
think. I like to think.
He was something. He got to breathe out of the box for a little bit.
He did. He aired him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just again, it's truly heartwarming. And again, they're getting excited about an old style bicycle with a giant front. They call it a velocipede, a giant front wheel and a tiny back wheel.
Yeah.
And it's the dorkiest thing ever.
I
Yeah,
found a velocipede
priceless.
under my cast water bowl the other day. It was a centipede. Sorry.
Anyways, they're really excited about this glorified unicycle, and they're all like these Western killers, murderous cowboys.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Murderous Cowboys, and they all. it's
But
great.
how does this not warm your heart? I don't know which one's my camera.
Speaking of the chief and Al, he's still
And
toting
Cockles.
that. He's still toting that head in a box around.
He is.
And
He is.
people are starting to notice, namely Dan.
Yeah. I may have jumped the gun on that when I said that last episode that he just talks to that head all the time.
It's okay.
Because I couldn't remember if the previous episode he hadn't been doing that already. But yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Two
he
episodes
just
ago.
started last episode,
Okay.
and so yeah, I was
Yeah,
I'm glad they addressed it because he's
Yeah.
losing his mind, but
Is he though?
little
Or is
bit.
he just like, yeah, I guess.
or are they trying to make an excuse to why people can go and soliloquy all over
I
the
think
place?
that's
Like,
constantly happening.
because Charlie has his reason to go to the grave and sit there and
Ellsworth
talk to
talks
himself.
to the dog.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's hard to tell. Like,
finally giving Al a reason.
yeah, like hard to tell how much is a
What
reason,
did
how
Al
much is how much is him going insane.
Yeah.
Um,
How much of him is just him being so comfortable with who he is, and it just amuses him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're obviously trying to bring up the question of is he losing his mind because Dan is like,
Yeah, well, especially after having a stroke.
yeah,
is he-
exactly.
Yeah,
Something could be wrong.
well, and he tells Dan, you haven't reached the certain age that I have, where
Maturity.
you feel the need to utter things that are better left kept to yourself.
Charlie utter things.
Charlie utter things.
yeah.
And it's another way to like put Dan down like as a not as smart or grown up as Al,
Yeah.
just a little bit. Even though, I don't know, it's a funny scene. It's played for laughs. Dan jumps up. He's so scared.
Right.
That it's an Indian head.
Right. Dan's not familiar with being around dead things.
Well, not things that are that damn dead.
Yeah.
Usually they're a little fresher.
Yeah.
And then he pokes it out.
Maybe it was more of like a, is it haunted or
That
like a
too.
curse kind of thing on it.
That too. But I mean, also just the idea of something decomposing in a box for like
That it's macabre.
6 months, right?
Why didn't you just feed it to the pigs?
Yeah.
That just hit me how long it's actually been since all that happened.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
been like 6 months.
Or a
It's a
year.
good
Or a
seal
year.
on that box that it didn't have his whole room stinking. He has a sensitive nose.
Yeah.
He can tell when someone's pooted or not.
We worked in Pooted.
Yeah, for viewers, we were talking about pooting before the episode started.
It's just, I love that word.
Because then we can hear the air, the fan in
Yeah.
the bathroom 2 rooms over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we must stop production when that bathroom turns on.
Yeah.
So,
So, in there Putin.
Anyways, our first scene is Bullock and Al are sitting in the gym, and they are.
This is a very strange. Yeah, they're sitting in the gym. He's spotting Al.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is very strange. It just starts with him being like, "What did you know about me, Bullock? When we first met."
Oh, yeah.
It's
That's
like
great.
this is. I mean,
No context. Like, what did you know when you saw me? Like,
it's also just again another like really weird opening to me of like I don't know them suddenly seeming like they're on the. I guess they are on the same side.
colluding and cahooting.
Yeah, cahooting.
Well, they've gotten back together after the first they had that awkward talking about saving the commissioner from getting killed by the mob, and now they're totally just having a drink together.
Yeah.
And it's and Bullock still won't have anything to do with him conversationally. Like his first words are, "What's the point? What's the campaign?" is what he says. And then Al is like talking about like showing like whether or not you can tell something about someone through their face.
Yeah.
And it's really just Bullock knew he was trying to kill somebody when he came to town.
Yeah.
But Bullock says, "The first thing I knew about you is that you're a killer." And Al says, "Oh, certain facts show in the mug." And then he takes the point to like call out Dolly, and the camera just goes to a shot of Dolly emphasizing her breast and her body and says, you can tell she's fucked for food. And it's like, and it's maybe another way for him to like make Bullock uneasy.
Yeah.
Because he's like constantly referring to like sex or things that Bullock isn't comfortable discussing.
I think he just can't help but crack jokes.
But and I think it's also like Bullock's so high and mighty and stuff, and he's like, yeah, and she's like fucking to survive.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
So let's keep things in perspective here.
Yeah. But I also don't understand with the use of Dolly, because it's like, I guess he's saying that at one point Dolly is a little bit like heavier than a lot of the prostitutes, and so it's like he's saying I think the way I read the intention of that line is like she should be like a near starving person. I guess the thing is that she used to be starving and now she's not starving. In terms of
I think
having
he was
sex
just being mean.
Okay.
I think he was just like turning it into a joke. I think like in the context of things you can instantly tell about someone just by looking at them.
Yeah.
And then he pointed her out, and that's the joke he made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
that's
I just took it completely on face value that he was being a dick.
Yeah, that's probably the right way to go with Al.
Yeah.
But he says that Bullock is like good because he's the minute in your mug there's no such history. Are you a cunt-driven near maniac or stalwart driven by principle? The many cannot tell, for you yourself are so fucking confused. And he said, but you make a good appearance, which we'll use as an asset in the coming campaign. And basically, they get around to the point, which is that Hearst has come to town. Al knows it. He needs Bullock to be his friend.
Yeah.
And he says, I need you as my candidate, as my public face. And
Yeah, and pretty soon here we see like that the Hearst operation is like ramping up. Like they've consolidated all these claims.
Yeah.
And like they have like hundreds and hundreds of people working these.
Oh yeah, in the
way
Wes
out.
Anderson montage.
Yes,
Yes.
way outnumbering the prospectors and stuff.
Al also notes that they want to use Bullock's connection to a judge
Yes.
to imply that instead of being annexed to Dakota or Dakota, they're going to try to get annexed as a territory to Montana.
Yeah.
To try to make the Yankton commissioners jealous.
Yes.
That they're not going to come with them into their state.
Yeah.
So in order to give them more leverage.
Right.
He also says he doesn't believe in dictatorships. He's like, you need to be able to influence the hoople heads and then control them that way. So Al believes in democracy.
Yeah.
Which is a very strange choice.
It almost seemed like a thing where Bullock was kind of like testing him or not teasing him, but just bringing that up just to see gauge his reaction kind of thing.
Because the way he sees it is that the camp and stuff, probably it does seem like a dictatorship in a lot of ways.
With
because
Al as
was
the
Al leading
puppet
it.
master.
But I think also the thing you can draw from this is that there's not much of a difference in like this pure capitalistic world that they live in this camp and a dictatorship. It's basically the same thing.
But you need to be able. Al really likes tricking people.
Yes.
And he feels like that's a much easier way for him to operate. Like
yes.
People need to at least think that they have a say.
And see, that's the difference between him and Cy. Cy wants to be a dictator and just rule by fear and making people do. He's not as good at the subterfuge.
He
as
even
Al
tried
is.
to buy soldiers from that general coming through town.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and then Al ends the scene by one of the many times in this episode that, it's a very typical thing in action movies, but like he says, "Will we of Deadwood be more than targets for ass funking?" And so it's like
very typical in action movies.
Yeah, in action movies, like there are many references to like penises and assholes, and like real men don't touch penises and assholes, and it's like it's very standard. Like if you're watching like an '80s action movie, there's that kind of thing where it's just like
drop the soap.
Yeah, and it's like and it's just but what to Deadwood's credit, a lot of times we see people using it. Calculating. Al often sometimes will say stuff like that, but he uses it to kind of influence his henchmen or other people.
Right.
And he uses it on Bullock here, and he says, "What's your posture, Bullock?"
To not grab ankle is to declare yourself interested.
Yeah.
What's your posture, Bullock?
As you see.
And Bullock's been pushing away, but at least he's like, "No, of course I wouldn't want that." And then there's also later in the episode we have Tom Nuttall is trying to get the crowd on his side. And he says one of the most repeated lines of this episode, which is like, it's
hold on.
Those who doubt me,
suck
cock by choice.
Yes,
yeah, suck cock by choice.
And then, but again, to emphasize that it's a method of winning over a crowd by like basically use like how far away you are from penis and assholes to like. Win over a crowd and influence them. Use homophobia too.
Homophobia to
yeah.
And usually that's been a thing for forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then,
But to this show's credit, it shows them Tom Nuttall calculating. He says it twice. He does it once, gets a laugh, and then there's another moment where he's like, I need to get another laugh. All right. And then he just repeats it.
I feel like that's a thing that like made the actors laugh and everybody on set, and so they just threw it in one more time because they like that phrase.
Yeah.
And when I think about Tom, that's the line I think of now.
Yeah. And with the most repeated line in the show, like the word cocksucker, a lot of people argue that it's not as much homophobic as is misogynistic in terms of like because a lot of the women at the brothel would be.
That's what they do.
Yeah, and so it would be like, but I mean, I'd say that regardless of intent, it's like.
It depends on the context, but I think a lot of the time you're right. That's actually what it refers to more so. But sometimes there are points where they're trying to like. We're getting in on episode 20 of Deadwood. We're finally getting into them talking about cocksucker.
Yeah.
So,
that's okay. There's never a bad time.
Yeah.
But in the first episode, we see him make fun of Brom Garrett, and he talks about him sipping.
Yeah.
And again, it's very calculated there. Where Al's like, I need to look good to my henchmen. I need to make fun of Brom Garrett. I'll make fun of the way he handles a glass is effeminate.
He puts on a lisp.
Yeah. Right. And you see that again and again and again. Deadwood has affinities with action movies and with like this kind of macho toughness and a kind of like homophobia or casual homophobia, but it also has like some thought into how it's presented and how it's used by the characters,
right? Which
I find interesting. Then we have, as you termed it, Jordan, the Wes Anderson section of this episode.
Well, it's just like it's a sort of a
he's writing
voice. It's a voiceover,
writing a letter,
cut to a montage.
Yeah.
And
Of naked men,
And
actually.
just something about the way he speaks, and it's so monotone because he's reading it like a letter and everything. Like all it needed is just some flowery music under it or something.
And everything that's like center framed.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's Francis.
Except it's naked Cornishman getting shot.
Yeah, it's Francis Walcott, and he's talking about his mining operation. I've never seen any sense that this is actually a real letter. Most of the letters and newspaper stuff in the show is real.
Yeah.
But I don't know as much about Hearst as I do about the first season, or and
Maybe
so
because it's so incriminating and that
Was
may or may
destroyed.
not be
A long time ago.
accurate.
But regardless, you need this here to, especially after that last scene, to like show the coming conflict
Yeah.
that's about to rain hellfire on this camp, which is the idea that all of these claims are about to be consolidated and that this pure evil, like the most evil capitalist you could imagine, is about to move in and like destroy everyone's way of life.
Right, yeah. And all that's left is Garrett's claim.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically. So that's like pressure on her.
Yeah.
and because they're hesitant to introduce Chinese labor so far, he says that they've introduced Germans and Cornishmen. And the Germans and Cornishmen have been hiding gold in their beards and their hair,
Yeah.
so they make them shower over a grate
Yes.
out in the public doorway, which collects all the gold.
And then they caught one guy trying to hide it in his butt.
Yep.
Yep.
And they shot him.
And he made a break for it and got shot.
Yeah.
Well, because the idea also being that these people are getting paid, but like extremely, extremely low amounts, and they're pulling out just like hundreds of dollars of worth of gold at a time,
Right.
And their labor is not valued in the least, and
No.
so they're
Well,
trying to
I mean,
take
just-
little nuggets back so that they can.
The degradation of being like showered
Right.
and beaten with like billy clubs
Yep.
and stuff.
And it's not a flattering. These gentlemen are like, it's very cold. And
Yes.
They don't look.
They don't look happy.
They don't look. Yeah, and
They look like what men actually look like when they're naked
Yes.
and
Yeah.
forced to shower in front of other men.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's the look on the guys is he's being like searched. His butt is being searched for gold is like very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like then he just gets shot by Captain Turner. This is the first appearance of Captain Turner, who is in several Van Damme films. He's the man who shoots the guy.
Oh, okay.
He's a famous stuntman.
Okay.
I thought it was weird that they added a sound effect.
I thought it was weird that they didn't spring for like a gun wound, like a latex gun wound. I think they just threw some paint.
Yeah, it looked like they just did a dot of
Oh,
blood.
that's good. Nobody will see that.
That's why they had that guy step in and cover it up with his
But not quick enough.
No.
It took me out of the scene a little bit. But you're right that it's such a placid narration. Francis Walcott is everything's hunky dory.
Yeah.
Captain Turner's great. Yay. And he mentions also Mose Manuel, who we meet in this episode, who I think is a real life person along with his brother, and who's played by Pruitt Taylor Vince. All right, so then we go to Doc and has looked to Cy Tolliver's prostitutes, and he's talking to him, and he says, I can also take care of those Chinese prostitutes, which I think you are also in charge of.
Yeah, no problem.
And Cy basically, again, very in a strange combination of disgusting shit and also humor, says that he wants to tolerate the Chinese way, and because of his tolerance, he doesn't hold the white man's as the sole and only path. I strive to tolerate what I may not agree with.
Yeah,
but those
whatever.
people's, and so
Save a buck, not pay him anything. I mean, not
feed him.
give him any food or anything, and then don't spend any money on anything related to them.
And
Just let
chalk
them
it up
die.
to not inflicting his culture on them.
Yeah,
I think to Cy's defense, I think that was a term that Walcott stipulated. Like they had a meeting between Walcott and Cy once, and I think it was. It's hard to follow the language.
You don't need to worry about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get it taken care of.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it's Walcott's choice, but basically, Doc does what he does best, and he says, "Under this arrangement, I will draw my care for your whites." And then Cy suddenly starts paying attention.
Yeah.
And then Doc says, "No, I need to live too."
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Doc is great about looking for reasons to explode with moral outrage.
Yes.
Like that's what he does best.
But it's like there's no conception inside that the fact that he's starving people in the camp might somehow affect Doc. But Doc says that it interferes with his ability to live.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just such a passionate line. You don't think that would even be able to be verbalized by any of these people in this camp.
Right.
And Doc says he can't live where there's suffering.
Yeah.
Which is, light years ahead of every
But
single
also, I
person.
think Tolliver kind of like played that to his advantage in that he kind of
Right.
he engineered it in such a way that it's like, well, if it's free,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how to take. Last words Tolliver says in the scene with Doc, he says, "Here too, let me tolerate a different point of view." So, and then Doc leaves, but that means he's accepting the care. We see him later,
but he accepts it free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the tail
I'm not
end
going
of
to pay you for it.
Yeah, at the tail end of it, he kind of like realizes like, oh, well, I can't lose the Doc caring for my sex workers, so he's so passionate about it. Let's see if he'll do it for free.
Exactly. Yeah.
and
he's so unsubtle with his when he's pretending to be on your side about something. I don't know, and he kind of does this sort of Southern Belle kind of phony thing that he's so great at being bad at it. But yeah, that whole well, you're just making me come around to the whole subject and change my mind and my whole fucking thinking.
Right.
And it's just like, no.
and he doesn't know what pro bono means.
I don't know what the point of that was. He said, I know what it means, but prove to me that you do. Oh, wait, maybe that is
that's what it was.
He didn't know what pro bono means.
Doc says, I would see to those others pro bono, and Cy says, I don't know what that means. Prove to me that you do. And Doc says, it won't cost you anything. Yeah.
Or does he say, I know what that means?
He isn't comfortable with admitting that he doesn't know something.
Yeah, I know what that means. Prove to me that you do.
And so it's just another example of like they don't know some language in this camp, and like they have great vocabularies otherwise.
Free gratis.
Yeah, but otherwise there's some words that, and that's Latin, so like that's fair.
Right.
And then we get the arrival of the velocipede, where out of the coach comes Tom Nuttall's velocipede.
Sounds like we're talking about Jurassic Park or something.
Yeah. And it's the Gents Bone Shaker model, and
Gents Bone Shaker.
And Tom Nuttall is really fucking proud.
He is. He is. I have not seen him this happy. I don't think ever.
Yeah.
Even pre Wild Bill, because he was in a funk after Wild Bill.
Yeah.
He's got a new lease on life because of a goofy purchase he made.
And it's a pleasure to see that man laugh and smile. I don't know why. It's just Leon Rippey, I think, is the actor. And he's amazing.
You just want nice things for him because he seems pretty harmless.
And then we also get A.W. Merrick is introduced to Blazanov, the telegraph operator, the Russian telegraph operator. And they seem like nerds who are made for each other.
Yeah.
They're really both obsessed with their different apparatuses that they use to complete their jobs.
Yeah.
And it's good. And this is probably going to go better than Merrick's interactions with the school teacher.
Yeah.
And then there's a joke about blistering, which I don't know exactly how to take.
Is it a joke?
I think it's a joke. Blazanov says, I hope the electrical fluid has not blistered with fierce voltage someone foolish to ground its potential. Merrick says, I'm not aware of any blistering, and my hopes in that regard may be different from yours. And then the scene cuts.
So that somebody did get hurt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's the joke.
That was it.
I thought it was some sort of sexual masturbation pun. Never mind. Right.
No, that would.
I'm thinking about blisters.
Merrick.
Oh, God.
Merrick is so, innocent in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
He was hoping for. Thank you.
He was hoping for somebody who broke into the office that would get hurt.
Yeah. I've seen this before. I have never understood that joke. Thank you. I now understand that joke. But anyway.
That's one in a row for me.
Yeah. That's one in a row for you, Wild Bill.
Because I don't understand half of what they're saying. So.
This actual episode was particularly bad, I thought. There were a lot of things where the language, I think, was a little bit too quick.
Yeah.
And you literally have to go back and listen to it.
I usually watch everything with subtitles on. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that we have the subtitles, but delayed.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just like in a waiting room at the doctor's office.
Also, someone who loves the bicycle is also William Bullock. Also is up there, and he's excited about it. Then we get Ellsworth talking to his dog.
Yep. Just going on his monologue about.
Do we have a name for the dog?
Tim Driscoll's dog.
Tim Driscoll's dog. Okay.
I don't know.
Tim Driscoll's dog.
Tig.
Talking about going to propose to Alma, right?
Alma
That's
Garrett,
pretty
yeah.
much it.
Yeah.
And he at the end of it, he says, "I'm taking that silence for fucking support," which
Yeah.
is, like there's a Latin maxim, silence means consent, which is, it's a neat,
Yikes.
that again, it's like, yeah, not the greatest maxim,
Right, yeah,
but it is like, it's another case where it's like some of these lines have influences beyond what's visible.
Yeah.
Then we get Alma and Martha meet.
Good lord, this is a fucking tense scene.
Yeah.
So
it
it's a
was.
mistress and the current wife of Bullock.
I don't understand what Alma's playing at in that scene.
In terms of what?
Well, I don't know. It just seemed like I guess she just got so like overwhelmed by the implications of everything and the context of things going on.
She was mad because the Mrs. Bullock was going to basically take Sophia away from her too during the day and school her.
Yeah.
And that's how she was perceiving it. And it was like, do you want to take anything else from me too?
Yeah.
And then there was all this
It was
implication
just,
thrown
but
back
it's
and forth.
so I don't know, like how these are thoughts you have in your head,
Yes.
and don't act on in the moment.
Yes.
You know.
Well, they're doing really good.
Yeah.
They're like, they have these social niceties, and they're both prim and proper ladies, and their children have gone off to another room to look at each other's
Yeah.
books, but not the toys.
But like
Yes.
every bit of awkwardness, once again, is her own doing. She stood up and walked away and didn't answer her,
Yeah.
and so that immediately created tension.
Right.
And then she just like doubled down on it and like got in her face.
Well, she goes over to the stove to cook them tea. She's like, they're like, "Would you like tea?" "Yes, I'd like
It
tea."
is morning.
And
Yeah,
then she like
but it's-
tries to do the tea, and she
Yeah.
drops the matches, and then she gets frustrated, and she's like, "Well, I don't usually do this, and I didn't know you were coming."
But it's just awkward for her because the person that she sees as stealing her guy away,
Yeah.
The wife.
the
of
wife,
him
that
he was already married to.
yeah, that he was already married to, but hadn't seen but like for 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
2 years ago or something, whatever. But she's slowly stealing everything that they had.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
Well, but Alma is basically at one point talking about, like, if I had adequate notification, I could have gotten some tea together.
Right.
And then
But that's a shitty thing to say.
yes,
it is, but it's kind of like Alma's like groove of kind of being prim, proper, and stuck up.
Yeah.
And then Martha's like, she like takes it a bit higher, and she's like, I'm trying to imagine what courtesy of mine would have forestalled the last awkwardness between us. And then Alma takes it a step up and says, "Do you wish then to take Sophia under your care as well?" And then Martha says, "As well as Hume." And I think it really clicks for Martha, and she's like, "Oh yeah,
mean
my
Bullock?
husband has been fucking this girl."
yeah,
Yeah.
And that's when we realize basically Martha didn't know for sure.
Yeah.
And now she knows for sure.
right.
And it's not a good smart move by Mrs. Garrett there.
No,
Yeah.
but she wants to get some things out in the open.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only way it's going to move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And she
That's
is-
true. I do get, sometimes just the weight of a secret. Even dumb little secrets.
I mean, and
I
really,
just want to blurt it out.
And really,
Just-
was anything going to be solved by not talking about it?
No.
She's about to have this fucking
Truth
kid.
comes out.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that doesn't go away.
I'm gonna
until he
have
dies
this
of
conversation
smallpox.
before I start showing. Know.
Well, good for them, but I don't think they were going that direction. I think they were both trying to be like prim and proper ladies.
No. I mean, I don't think they were trying to go that direction, but that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
And another prim and proper lady, Mrs. Isringhausen,
Oh my goodness.
she goes to visit Al, and then she runs into his crotch when she enters the
Bumped into
room.
him when he
And I think that was her. I interpret that as her trying to see if he has a weapon on him.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can make sense, because she
Okay.
clearly is running into him, and he says,
I thought she was just pulling the same stuff she pulled with Silas.
"Oh, maybe
With
trying to
Adam.
Maybe.
seduce him."
Yeah.
Yeah, just constantly being
Flirty and
flirty
yeah.
and I don't know.
Anyhow, thanks for brushing against my prick.
Yeah, yeah, she's really misjudged him.
yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, so she also has a really cool line. He offers her whiskey, and he says, "Too early for you?" And she's, "I don't time my drinking." And she's just like a badass. Sarah Paulson as Miss Isringhausen is awesome.
Yeah.
And then they have this really confusing sense of discussion of the different contracts they're going to sign for different amounts of
Right.
money.
So is it like half up front, half upon delivery or something?
I think so.
Is that the basic gist of it?
And basically, the documents will say that what he's going to get in return from the Pinkerton organization via her, and also Dan Doherty will confess to the murder.
Yeah.
And then she will.
And then he gets released, right? They're like, there's some sort of weird thing where it's like he goes with them and then he escapes.
Yeah.
So they just let him out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they'll still have the document in order to prove her guilt.
Right.
And then but he'll also have a document. It begs a little belief that she would ever sign a document that implicates her in anything. But I guess it's like, it's not necessarily implicating them in a premeditated like blackmail or whatever. Probably the document would only say that it wouldn't necessarily spell out this like they're spelling it out.
But then they're burning it in the agent's presence?
Yes.
So she's signing it and then burning it.
Well,
possibly.
Like as an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sign it in his presence.
Well, she's aware that it could be used badly. I think.
Right.
Or burn it.
Right.
Just like it, so long as it doesn't exist, so long as it cannot be used, against us, against the Pinkerton agency, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there are just two documents. One, the murder, basically that Alma sent for the murder of Brahm, and then the second document is Doherty escapes. So that's really what it is. Yeah. Lots of documents. Again, my main takeaway is Alice Isringhausen is really cool when she says, "Agreed with these amendments, 25 to UN signatures." She just is awesome.
Yeah.
And then Al.
She's sharp.
Got a good fucking head on her shoulders, unlike some other parties in this room.
And Dan
Looks like
takes.
headless box.
What was he talking
He's
about?
talking about the head in the box.
Yeah, but Dan takes it. I think is
Dan takes it personally.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's staring at the box.
Right.
So then Blazanoff Merrick takes Blazanoff to Tom Nuttall's place where they are all talking about how
the shit stirrer.
velocipede will do in the quagmire and the boardwalk, and they start betting. And
So is the shit stirrer the one who stirs the shit here?
he's the guy with the hat and the cigar who got Steve the drunk to like.
Yeah, but I can't remember what he looks like. So is he in this episode?
He's like covered in muck.
But he's the guy who's like
Betting
He's
against.
the betting.
Okay,
against.
so
Yeah.
he is being again the shit stirrer.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
he totally is.
Okay. Just making sure.
But basically they bet on going down the boardwalk and it's going to be a big bet. Everyone's excited. And then Martha Bullock comes home is preparing food for Bullock for lunch.
Cold
and
meat sandwiches.
Cold meat sandwiches.
Great.
And their life just looks like a hell, like a domestic hell.
Yeah.
And it's like turned up a notch because she's like fucking hates him.
Yeah.
And she just found out. And
he's always cold and aloof and just goes and stands completely still in the corner.
This is everything he says in the scene. Fine, I'll get it. Good. Has he? Good. That's it. That's all he's saying.
And it's like over those words, he slowly realizes, "Oh, I'm fucked."
Yeah.
And her most biting phrase is, "Your food is ready." She's like looking away from him and exiting the room. She's just like, "Your food is ready," and it's with such contempt. And she just is like, and she's got, Martha Bullock's right. Bullock cheated on her in her loveless marriage, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is less to do with her being like heartbroken because they were in love, and more to do with like.
You didn't just fucking tell me?
Well, and
It's
and
like,
also it's more of a taboo and sort of a dishonor.
Sure.
Upon kind of thing.
But I almost feel like if he had just
And then not
said
being good at
something-
keeping the secret.
Yeah, the problem is he's like also lying on top of it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
badly too.
Yeah.
then we get a scene of Jane and Charlie, and Jane is throwing up on the front of Charlie's business.
It's mighty good for business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that there are just 2 buckets of water sitting there.
Always. There's always 2 buckets of water in any old West town, so they can
Yeah,
just,
yeah, so you
clean
just-
off the sidewalk.
Blood, vomit.
Piss, shit,
Yeah. And
poots.
he threatens
In there.
he threatens Jane with
Like Hollow Man.
Does a hollow man have poops flying through him?
I was just imagining like
It's just a hollow man made out of poop. Poops.
you didn't know that it just looks like naked Kevin Bacon.
But Charlie threatens Jane with getting kicked out. Getting kicked out of her out of where she sleeps if she won't pay attention to Joni Stubbs. He wants her to go, despite being in the middle of throwing up.
Because you got a lot of, experience having dead friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you.
Yeah. And it's a good
she
point.
She needs something to occupy herself. And
Yeah.
she needs to
And it also needs to be a woman.
Yeah.
To go talk to her. Yeah.
Well, it's astute. It's like, you're drinking yourself to death. Why don't you just go down the street and talk to my friend who just is at her wit's end?
Right.
And then we get Bullock being an asshole to Saul, as it does.
Right.
Okay, this is the only thing that I'm not in love with the show, is that this relationship has become repetitive.
Between Saul and Bullock.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like every, time. It's like, I guess, every 3 episodes or something.
Well, he gets mad at him. He's mad about something else, and he just gets
he's mad
It's
about.
like the opposite of bringing your
He's
work
mad at
home with
Alma.
you.
Yeah, he's mad at Alma, and then takes it out on Saul, and then whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like the same cycle over and over again.
Whatever he's mad about,
Exactly.
he takes it out
And
on
then
anyone who's around.
And then Trixie's standing in the background because she doesn't have anything else to do in this episode, and just goes
She's
like,
finding
"Hey,
her
I'm here."
Decimals.
Yeah, and
That's it.
I think one of the sad things is we know that John Hawkes as Soul Star can do, like, he could do the Seth Bullock role. Like, he can play a tough customer.
Yeah.
And his character is so nerdy and kind, as we said, passive good.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't get more to do than react to Bullock a lot.
Right.
And then we have Mose Manuel is introduced to us.
The dirty guy.
The dirty guy
Yeah,
played
yeah.
by Pruitt Taylor Vince, who has a condition which makes his eye go back and forth. You guys were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he uses it to a good effect, but his eye like jitters really quickly, and so
Yeah.
it makes his character appear really nervous.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's covered in dirt and has a nice little fancy vest with maybe a watch chain.
Yeah.
But his like face is covered in dirt.
Yeah.
It's like almost too perfectly covered in dirt.
Yeah.
Somebody worried about the splatter pattern on his
Oh,
head.
yeah. So someone's standing like 4 feet away going,
But he and his brother do not deal happily with groups of men, Walcott notes, and he would like to buy his claim, but his brother probably doesn't want to sell his claim and is often in the saloon drinking.
Yeah.
And
So,
so
to figure out which one.
yeah. But and also Mose Manuel, again a real life person, notes that he hates high graders. I love this scene because it's just I like Mose Manuel a lot, and I like how Walcott eggs him on, and Walcott keeps insulting and threatening. Mose Manuel keeps threatening Walcott with physical violence. He keeps saying, "State your business," and then Walcott will go off like and saying something flowery, and he'll just say, "State your business," and then he's like, "Maybe I could talk to your brother," and then Mose says, "Don't tell me how to talk to my brother," and then Walcott is in the foreground of the shot, and he's just like, "Certainly, I would never do that." And he's like, "Unless you're trying to fucking irritate me." And Walcott goes, "Opposite of my attention." He's not even like looking him in the face. And then like Mose Manuel like just walks really close and he's like, $200,000, and he's like, "Cash." And then it lingers on Walcott, and Walcott has this look of ambivalent guilt. Like, I don't know how to read his face, but anyway, I like these two actors. Cut this out. Alice and Alma. Alma goes to Mrs. Isringhausen's room. I'm calling her Alice just because this script we're reading from says Alice. It's Mrs. Isringhausen.
Ringhausen's first name? Okay.
Yeah, but her name is
Previous
Mrs.
scripts has been Mrs. Ringhausen.
Yeah,
So it's weird that she's Alice in this.
yeah. It should be Mrs. Isringhausen. That's how she's referred to. But anyway, Mrs. Isringhausen is confronted by Garrett that she's a Pinkerton, and she dispenses with Alma pretty quickly and
Yeah.
easily. She starts
Or-
out with her cool lisp.
Or as Al refers to her, that cunt with the long kraut moniker.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how he tells Johnny to go get her.
To go get Miss Isringhausen.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mrs.
The long
Isringhausen,
kraut moniker.
like, she like catches Alma's slap, and she drops
Yeah.
her lisp, and is just like, "You've had your fun."
Yeah. Leave.
Yeah. And again, I want to see the adventures of Mrs. Isringhausen,
Yeah, yeah.
like on the Mississippi and stuff.
Just tell me who you think I am. If you say Pinkertons, you're probably going to be dead.
Yeah, you've had your fit of temper. Get the fuck back to your room.
And then let's see. We have Richardson is looking after. He's talking the last time. I think
he was like freaking out.
He's talking to Pants Shitter.
Yeah, who is the
What?
The man who played it's Zach Ward, who played Scott Farkas in A Christmas Story, and he plays the guy who shat in his pants and thereby acquired Wild Bill Hickok's letter.
Yeah.
And anyway, this is maybe his last appearance in the series. So it's like I think that he had a role, and then it got taken over by this extra who played Richardson. I don't know. I mean, it's just like. I don't think we see Scott Farkas, a.k.a. Zach Ward, again. And, it's like Richardson is like the key employee from now on.
Richardson's incredible, though.
Yeah.
And it's even better in this scene.
And I think he saves E.B. Farnham's life.
He does. And E.B. Farnham shows no gratitude for it.
No.
He's just like, you stuck your gross fucking hands down my throat?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just wants to ask if he can go get permission to see the bicycle.
Yeah, he is such a, 7-year-old child.
You're talking about E.B.
I'm talking about Richardson.
Okay.
I'm talking about Richardson showing up and being like, and saving
Pulling it out of
his
his mouth,
life and then being like, can I go to see the bicycle race?
Watch the earth yielding up. It's dead as so long as it's not near me.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. So I don't know what that's referring. Is that referring to resurrection?
Watch the earth
I don't
yielding
know.
up. It's dead. Yeah,
Or
that must be
or
resurrection.
slowly how graves might become uncovered. I don't know.
I think it's supposed to be the resurrection.
Okay. But E.B. Farnham again can't show compassion even to. I don't know.
Even when he's choking on his own tooth or whatever the fuck he was choking.
Yeah.
on.
Put some kind of soap in his mouth to ease.
And he choked on it.
Clove soap.
He fell asleep.
Clove soap. Okay.
Yeah. And then we have our scene we talked about previously where Dan and Al discuss the rotting head that Al keeps talking to.
Yeah.
And then
Dan's great in that. His whole reaction, with his head up against the door.
Well, Andy ain't got an opinion?
Yeah.
And he's
He's
just
trying
sitting
to
there in the
gauge,
doorway
the
for a
humor
second.
of it.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I guess we're not joking about this. Bye.
Yeah.
And then he just listens inside to see if he's...
And Al goes out on the porch to
Right.
talk to him.
Because he knows that Dan's fucking out there.
And then in the next scene we get Tom Nuttall's bike ride, which is how it has been uploaded to YouTube. It just says Tom Nuttall's bike ride, and sometimes if I want to feel happy, I can just go and watch it because it has this delightful string music.
Yeah.
It ends with a murder, or no, murder happens during it. But
Yeah.
it's everyone in the series watching this bike ride, and against all odds, Tom Nuttall beats Shitstir and earns. He masters the boardwalk and quagmire with aplomb, and. Basically, there's a really sweet moment where Al is talking to the head of Chief, and he's opened up the box and talked about how much more is decomposed. He's surveying the scene. Tom Nuttall knocks down somebody who tried to bribe him to throw the race, and he says, "Corruption will never breathe stinky on my bicycle," which is a bizarre phrase.
It hits him with a cudgel.
Yeah.
It's
brains him, and he falls, and somebody rushes to him.
So you see someone going checking on him because he's just out.
And he's like a politician or something, standing there talking about how corruption won't, take
Right.
hold here, and then climbs on his bike.
Yeah. But Al says, and again, Al shows so much compassion towards Tom Nuttall throughout the series. He says, sent many of your friends to the happy hunting ground. Formidable Tom was, and no more a fool now than time shows us all. So again, Al with these with empathy and compassion. Anyway, so
Never breathe stinky on my bicycle. Bicycle. I guess.
Bicycle.
and there's all these images of him barely on top of this
Yeah.
huge velocipede, and you see this perfect cloud of smoke lift off from Merrick's camera, the shadow of it on the building behind him. So it's
Oh, yeah.
a beautiful image. And then you see, again, as we said before, the soap with a prize inside a guy and Bullock share a smile. They look at each other and smile like they're in an
That's
80s
bizarre.
sitcom.
Yeah.
And then our serial killer,
huckster.
Francis Walcott, he laughs to himself, and then he laughs again as if he's like, oh, well, I laughed fakely, and now I can laugh for sure. And so, even the coldest heart, or maybe the most murderous heart, is warmed.
Require the strongest
Serial
wills.
Yeah. And then we get, also during this, Moe's manual talks to his brother in Tom Nuttall's place and shoots him in the chest because he just says, no, I don't want to sell the claim.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that back and forth of him saying he wants to fucking sell it.
Also, Richardson is holding his antlers. And Al says, while raising his fist, "Go on, my son!" And it's just, again, it's again, how can this show be heartwarming? It is extremely heartwarming.
Right.
I don't know why.
It's strange.
There's something warm and cozy about this murder pit.
And there's also a beautiful edit where you see it moves into the frame. Moe's manual moves into frame where it's like it's moving to the right, and it's almost as if he jumps in front of the montage. Like it looks like he's like superimposed on the montage. It's like he walks into frame and he says, "My brother had an accident," and he slowly, as he talks about it, he slowly realizes that he's going to miss his brother as he talks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the suddenness of it hadn't sunk in, and it's like, wait, what did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Walcott can't help but say, repeat things and talk more flowery, and then it immediately frustrates Moe's manual. Anyway, and then we get to Jane and Joni. Jane is calling upon Joni in the Chez Ami.
Jane is not in good shape in this whole scene. It's hard to hear. It's hard to even understand her because she's just so... I don't even know what's going on. I guess she's
drinking herself to death.
Well, but she's not drinking right now.
Right.
So that means that she's going through withdrawals right now because she's been drinking so much that she's physically dependent on the alcohol now.
She's like bracing herself with that chair, like she's in pain.
Because you get tremors.
Yeah.
And you start shaking and stuff. So she's like trying to keep herself from shaking and all this. That's why she was throwing up earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why she refuses to take the drink during the thing. Because she's trying to come off of it.
Yeah. It's rough.
And she specifies that she wants bourbon from Kentucky, which is Walcott's drink. And so Joni puts it out. It's Basil Hayden bourbon, which is a still drink that you can still get today.
Yeah.
And
where you can get it around here?
You can. Or at least somebody, I have been with people who have got it. But they kind of tease out, like, Joni is kind of frozen in not really wanting to talk about it. And Jane kind of works her magic, sort of, just a little bit. I think Jane eventually runs away when she realizes that Joni's waiting for Walcott to come back, and maybe out of cowardly, and that annoys Janie. But at the same time, I don't know.
My butt hurts.
Yeah, my soul. Not really.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep up energy, and I get a little too far afield.
No, it's great. I mean, I like that.
The scene to me is extremely touching because Jane is barely able to stand up, and it's all, in some ways it's a horrible. It's like it's an indignity for Joni to deal with this, but at the same time, Joni needs a fucking friend of any sort.
Yep.
And like I really like a lot of Jane's lines in the scene, including what she asked her what type of drinks. What was her preference for drinks, and she says that it ain't been previously swallowed, and she says like, "Will you have a drink?" "Yes, but my opening position is no," and it's just there's like really good lines.
I like this line. "Murdered your friends? It's best not to talk about that." That's and this Joni saying it's best not to talk about that. And then Jane says, "If we held to that rule, we'd be mute like monks months at a fucking time."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she also says, "I don't guess."
That's all she does. She just talks about Bill all the time.
Yeah.
Well, she also talks about how in the plague tent. She used to talk about everyone that she saves in the plague tent stays cured, and then they started dying. So now she just says, "Many left up. Some left the tent upright." So she's like, she still wants to brag about that.
Right.
And then Jane says, "I don't guess it was plague," and Joni says, "No," and Jane says, "Fucking violence, probably." And I just, which again, like, what cowboy would refer to murder as violence? Like, I mean, maybe they would.
Yeah.
But it's just a great line. It's like a way of looking at it in a
step back.
Yeah, overall way. And then after that scene, we have Ellsworth proposes to Alma.
Yeah.
Bless
his heart.
As soon as he opened the door, I thought he was just going to go
drop
down
on one knee right then. Yeah.
And
no, I mean,
not quite.
I don't know if there's enough buttering up in the world for
there ain't enough
for that bomb
butter.
You're about to drop.
There ain't enough butter in the damn world to grease Ellsworth up to shove him into this marriage. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's,
like
Well, Alma
he's gonna fit in
his
that tight
intentions
hole.
are noble, and but yeah, Alma is also young and
Doesn't want some old fuck who can't even get up after he fucking.
But she's not thinking
tries to
about it the
propose.
way maybe she ought. I don't know.
I mean, maybe, but also she's rich as fuck, so who cares?
Right, that's true.
Well, Alma is like just like Joni needs a friend.
Yeah.
And she's initially pretty excited to see Ellsworth because he's like he's someone who doesn't want anything from her. He only supports her.
Yeah,
And this is like
oh no.
this is the rarity where like he's like interested in he wants something back
Yeah.
in particular. And he also mentions that he used to be married. He used to have a baby girl, and they died. And he's like, I'm not, my time with them was brief, so I'm not very skilled.
Yeah, that's we keep getting little nuggets, no pun intended,
Yeah.
of Ellsworth's backstory,
Yeah,
and that
little poots,
little poots from beyond the grave.
little poot.
But it's just like it's a sad backstory. Like the dude is fucking noble and
Yeah.
kind and good and decent and
and not necessarily, I think it's not coming from a selfish place that he's proposing marriage.
well, Trixie put him up to it.
It's that he
she
knows-
planted the seed.
Right. It's that he knows that she's with child.
Yep.
And he's doing her the courtesy of covering it up for her
Right.
if she would have him.
Right.
Which would be a social concern.
She would not have to deal with the social ramifications of
exactly.
having some random kid.
Yep.
yeah.
If we go ahead and get this done now before you start to show, basically.
And she takes a care, even being flustered and being super overly coldly, icily polite, she takes the care to say thank you. And then
she
as soon-
didn't want to let him leave without letting her
Yeah,
know
like-
that it's like I am, I don't want to just dismiss, you to walk away and get the wrong idea
Right.
by me needing time.
But as soon as he's gone, though, the look on her face is just like, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's great. And then we cut back to Martha and Bullock, and Bullock's opening question is the boy warm enough? It made me think of like
It's
Homer
a-
Simpson referring to
and
the boy.
It's, and it's such a strange frame because he's poking at something out of frame, and then he just says, "Is the boy warm enough?" It just feels like
Puts the lotion on the skin.
yeah, it feels like a horror movie or something.
Yeah. He's just poking coals, right?
Yeah, right. It cuts the close up of the coals.
And
yeah.
And she's like, she basically states what, like, I appreciate that you're taking care of my son, but you don't need to act like a husband to me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm not going to ever shack up with Alma again. And she says, I reject the offering. I repudiate it. I find it poisonous. Which is, go Martha Bullock.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
And then we have Al again entering Merrick's office through the back door. And
So it was just like, setting up a new set or whatever.
Yeah. It's like
because
I'm tired of having to.
We've only ever seen it looking that way.
Yeah.
Like up until recently, we've only seen it like looking out towards the road, and so they were like, "Oh, let's just build out
we'll
this.
put some
We'll put some
stairs up
steps
here."
up there." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, it goes out," and then he comes out, and then everybody goes, "Woo!"
Yeah.
It's great.
like a Married with Children audience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It does look like it's like he comes in from way up high and
Yeah.
walks down the stairs into the
Right,
set.
and he and he like slides into it.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Whoa!"
He's getting better with his arm. Like he's doing a lot more active this episode. He's like
Yeah.
he's having less trouble walking.
He's getting around.
Yeah.
And he's written out an article for Merrick to print.
Right, yeah.
And then
Unconfirmed.
he gets angry that Merrick doesn't understand what he's talking about.
Right.
And also that he doesn't understand that he's angry that he didn't tell him who arrived in camp.
that he's finding out about
doesn't-
Blazinoff after the fact.
Yeah.
He thinks that because he had this talk with Merrick, that now
That pep talk.
yeah, the
that,
pep
like-
talk, that now they're like, he's like a Dan or somebody that he can basically like tell him to do something and they'll just do it without question,
Right,
and not
yeah.
really ask any. But the problem is,
He thought he had manipulated him enough.
right, if he said like marching into battle together to Dan or anybody else, they would just be like, but instead he's like, allies marching. What's going on?
Yeah, Merrick
I
is
don't understand.
independent-minded
Everybody
and
is
good
really
with
little.
diction.
Exactly.
So he's not intimidated by Al's phrasing.
Right.
That's a great point. Like,
Well, I mean, besides him trying to intimidate him into printing this thing about folding Deadwood into Montana territory. Unconfirmed
Right.
reports from Sheriff Bullock.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you hear Bullock say it?
that's when Blazanov
Comes in,
and then Al I guess he doesn't really have to be that subtle because of the language barrier.
Right, yeah.
So he has to be a little more upfront about being like, oh, I don't do
Trying to
bribes.
bribe him?
Yeah. it's
So he
like-
mimics sucking a cock in
does.
front of two Blazanov.
Yes.
And again, another in this episode focused on kind of like homoerotic stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like it's very friendly. It's a little bit less homophobic than the other
Right.
uses, where
It's
it's like
like
it's like
teasing.
you could come next door and you could have your cock
Free
sucked.
forever.
Yeah. And
Forever.
all I would need to know is what you put in your telegraph.
That's it.
And Blazanov is kind of delighted by this. Sounds funny.
It's another.
But he's a little confused by
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah. And his final look when Al closes the door is not to smile.
Yeah.
He doesn't smile. But I was going to say that if Bullock is the state and law enforcement and Al is commerce and Merrick is press, then commerce is like basically controls the press.
Yeah.
And takes it over quickly and
Yeah.
easily.
Yes.
I love Merrick's explanation of it. And thus you encounter one of our wonderful, meaningless American traditions, Mr. Blazanov, the tall tale conversation and tales and good nature.
Good nature.
Because he's embarrassed by the sexual content,
Right.
wants to play it off.
Yes.
And then Al, of course, puns on it and turns it into a pun on tails.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, then we get Charlie.
And he's holding the metaphorical skull in
Of-
his hand in the graveyard.
And you comment on this, Chad, that it looked like it was shot like a New York drama.
Yeah.
Because it's a tight shot on Charlie with a very modern-looking coat.
Well, it was because
His
collar was flipped up.
His collar flipped up because they had some wind machine or something that was kicking a lot.
It
of
might have
wind
just been windy.
towards him, maybe.
But yeah.
So his collar flips up, and they cut into this shot that's like a medium shot, and it's got like super depth of field here. So like the background is just like little points of light.
Oh yeah, and there's like you can the aperture or whatever controls the way the light is
so
shaped.
the bokeh is
Yeah.
It's a little,
Oh, I didn't think to even pay attention. But like, as windy as it is,
yeah.
did he loop his lines?
He had to.
Because it seemed natural to me. If I bought it,
Yeah.
like I didn't even think about that.
No, yeah,
Usually I pick up on,
Yeah,
you
but
know, like
no, but he absolutely had to. So like, yeah, I mean, they just did a good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, his collar flips up in that moment, and then it like almost, I don't know,
You look like a romantic comedy about New York,
maybe.
yeah.
where he's talking to Bill.
Where he's
Yeah,
talking
he's
to his
talking to
dead
Bill.
friend. But no, I mean I like
That 1
the
second.
content of it too.
Yeah.
Is heartbreaking and it makes you like Charlie.
But I remember a long time ago, so many episodes ago, when he did this with Jane for the first time, you were kind of like, I don't like this. So what did
I like this.
You like this one?
I'm down with the monologuing to Bill's grave.
Yeah.
I think the first time where it's a little bit cutesy, she's like, "Well, I don't make the fucking rules." Like I like
Yeah.
that's a little bit like her. It's okay for Jane, but for Charlie's more serious
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
But by now I've accepted the reality.
Right.
I'm
People
down with
have
it.
monologue to weirder things.
Yeah, EB's been given monologues in full view of people.
Yeah.
In the middle of this hotel lobby.
Yeah, EB doesn't have to have anything to bounce off of. He just
No.
does it like in the broom closet.
Yeah, he's amazing. But it's a good monologue, and again, it's a lot less funny. It's a little sad, and he's basically Jane is seriously ill.
He's helpless. He doesn't know what to do. He's trying to help her, but he kind of met his match as far as that goes because she is so down right now.
Yeah, and then he ends it with, "But I'll keep trying."
Yeah.
And then we have Walcott is showing the pig refrigerator where
Moses' brother Charlie.
Moses' brother Charlie is his body is being housed,
Right.
and trying to seal the deal.
And Mose is, it's starting to sink in finally what he's done, and
Yeah.
he's not like backing out of the deal. He just doesn't. I mean, it's obviously like weighing on his conscience now that he's like, I shouldn't do this, should I? But then this guy's just like, it's just fucking do
It's
it.
done.
Just get it over with. You already killed him. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, and then like the scene is bookended. First, Doc Cochran is there, and there's a woman who's dead. Her corpse is there, and it looks like I think there's like some cut tomatoes thrown in like her cage.
Well, I want to say, or I don't know.
Was it
Was
tomatoes?
that something? I don't know, but
You see that
I
shot?
interpreted it as food that he had brought her,
Okay.
You know,
But he's very
because
upset.
they were saying that they didn't feed him, and so Doc being there, he might have brought food and found her that way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I know it cuts to this one shot of this one of the ladies in a cage, and it's like horrifying because she's just like frozen,
Staring
still,
off into the
and she looks like a statue.
space,
And
yeah.
she's just staring off
Well,
into
it's a
nothing, and
l-
she's just like ghostly pale.
Yeah, but it's a look of defiance. And
Yeah.
Walcott has just, Moses walked off, and he just says, he goes from like a quiet statement to "Close your eyes," and then she's just like won't blink.
Right.
And it's beautiful
Yeah.
because it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna kill me, but at least
What I saw from it is that she was just completely shell shocked,
that may be true.
Yeah,
like she was gone.
But as far as like Chinese actors outside of Mr. Wu who have agency and Mr. Lee who have agency, like that's the most that I think any like Asian female gets to do in the series is stare back and look a little bit like don't do automatically what this guy who's killing you says to do.
Right.
Like there's also the woman who stares at Jewel when she falls in the street. But like they're, again, like the Asian people in this. They show them as second-class citizens, and
Right.
they get literally treated as slaves and murdered casually, and so it's a very intense moment. It's super intense, and again, it's you just take your battles where they are, and I like that she didn't close her eyes.
yeah,
And I also like that Mose Manuel here is very upset about his brother, and he's basically like, "Is it that easy to forget a fucking brother?" And Walcott's response is, "Money has its properties in this regard," and it's just.
yeah.
It's very cynical.
Yeah.
And then we have Walcott and Jane.
Yeah.
Oh,
Walcott and
Joni.
Joni. Sorry, excuse me.
Oh yeah.
yeah, because that's a really important scene.
Mm-hmm.
She
come-
and then you made a point of pointing out the Basil Hayden bourbon
Yeah. Yeah.
earlier, and so he says, "Oh, Basil Hayden bourbon, you were waiting for me."
And then she says, "No, that was left here by my friend Jane." She just talked to Jane for the first time.
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
they're friends.
Yeah.
But it's a nice line. So you see
Yeah.
that they bonded. And then she smashes him in the face with that bottle.
Yeah.
And then runs
Which
in there.
was really like the blood that they applied, or that effect. It was good.
Yeah.
It sweltered. It
It-
covers an eye perfectly.
Yeah. It looked like that hurt.
And Joni has been waiting like a little doll in this chair centered in the middle of an empty room
Yep.
to be slaughtered. And
Yeah.
she's like, "Come in and do what you're going to do to me." And then she immediately he misunderstands the purpose of the Basil Hayden, and she hits him with it. So it's like she goes from like 0 to 180, or about like does what a normal person would actually do, which is attack the guy who's going to try to kill her.
Yeah,
And-
which he hadn't even. I don't know that he had decided that was even why he was there. He seemed to kind of just drift in off the street with vague, undefined intentions.
Yeah. Well, he says, she asks him if it's easier. He says, "I don't know what I came to do." And she says, "Is it easier saying that?" And he says, "The other nights I've known." So yeah, I think his intention was just, I'm going to talk to Joni.
Yeah.
I think naturally she's right. Eventually he would come
He
around to
would.
killing
I
her.
mean, he would have. Yeah, but yeah, that sort of. He seemed in a fog. He's been in a fog. It seems like since the killing. I think.
He's a strange mixture again of like this very kind of almost polite and kind character, and this person who is again driven to slit women's throats and beat them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been getting his ass handed to him
Yeah, which is pretty great.
lately,
Yeah.
and seems to be so passive about it. Like I don't know.
Well, he's already said like several. I mean, maybe the first episode he was in, where he said some sentence where he was just talking about how low of an opinion he has of himself, and
Yeah.
he just thinks he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's been living
which
up
is
to it
probably
ever
true.
since then.
He probably has.
But why not arrest the serial killer instead of beating him and indulging in his passion for being beaten, his
Well,
masochism?
I think he like Charlie might have killed him had Bullock not
That's
pulled
true.
him off.
Yeah, he would have killed him.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't. I mean, in the building.
That was Tim Driscoll's dog.
Yeah.
Joni also says, I got a fucking gun in here too, which is kind of like Trixie. She's like pulls out a tiny pistol.
Yeah.
And then there's also a very wonderful scene, the last scene, where Jane sees Walcott, and then she gets her rifle out, and because she's so drunk, she like crouches over, and she's like, her posture is literally that of like Annie and Annie Get Your Gun, like where she does all these like songs where she's prancing with her rifle. Like it's just such a weird. She's like crouched down and scooting towards him, and they're just like walking down a street that's busy with people, and yeah.
Well, I don't think she's not drunk though.
Oh, she's not drunk.
She's not drunk.
Okay.
I still don't think she's had any.
No,
Oh, you're
yeah,
right,
she
she never
didn't
did.
have a bottle. It was a shotgun she had.
But she's still really fucking weird.
Well, she's fucked. Well, she's fucked up again. She's come. I mean, she's been drinking like
For days
like,
on end.
and like handles, like multiple handles per day of fucking alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
Is like, so she's fucked. Her lips all cracked and fucked up. That's from dehydration.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she's fucked. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, she's just coming down off of it, and it's just that's why she can't barely stand and she can't move around.
But it's also something that she's a kind of a more comic character than everyone else.
Right.
But you're right. No, that totally makes sense. And it is, she's going through a very sad little arc
Yeah.
now. But it's just like, this scene is funny though.
Yeah, oh, it's very funny.
Because she's like scooting towards him with this rifle, and no one is paying any attention to either of them.
No.
And he's walking
In a
like a
crowded
zombie
street.
down the street with like blood on half of his face.
And the citizens of Deadwood do not give a damn.
No.
Yeah, and she tries to test his truthfulness here, and she says, "If you find me untrue in any particular, I stay at the Grand Central Hotel." And then she asks a question that she already knows the answer to: "Who runs that joint?" A grotesque named Farnham. Yeah, he lied so far.
And it's like they can agree on that. Farnham.
Everybody can share in their hatred of Farnham. It's amazing.
The end.
Anyways.